Hi, this is the Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast. Our heartwarming conversation is designed to lift you on your wellness journey. Grab your cup of tea and enjoy the podcast.
Okay.
Welcome to Understanding Your Pain. This is a special trilogy exploring how the body communicates through discomfort and how we can listen deeply to what it's going to be telling us. I'm Dr. Michelle Greenwell, and in this second episode, I have the wonderful Denise Cambiotti and Kate Montgomery joining back in to help us dive deeper into this subject in relation to feet, ankles, knees, and hips. So in the last episode, we went hands through the arms, and now we're going to take the limbs, the lower limbs. If you listen to that first episode, then you know that we talked about the relationship of them plus biofeedback. If you missed the episode, we encourage you to go back because each episode that we've done is building on the next one. And we also did a trilogy prior to that called Beyond the Physical. And that gets you into the background of the science and the use of biofeedback and muscle monitoring and how we brought the conversation forward to where we are now. And so we would love for you to have that conversation with you. All right, as we dive deeper, I just want to bring forward some of the background of my wonderful guests, because if you haven't listened before, you don't know who they are. And I want to introduce Denise, who is the owner of Muscle Tuners International, and she is known for her deep expertise in biofeedback, muscle monitoring, and creating systems to help unlock the body's potential for self-correction. And Kate, who is an author of Sports Touch, The Athletic Ritual, and End Your Carpal Tunnel Pain Without Surgery, has worked with athletes, individuals globally to restore balance and performance and using integrative touch and body awareness. So both of them have many years of experience working with people and helping them get to where they can release their pain, which is our topic for today. Before we start, I always dive into a cup of tea, gets the healing process started for you, the listener. So if you don't have a cup of tea beside me or you've got some water, you might want to infuse that water with a little bit of positive energy, maybe a color. And while you're doing that, Denise, what have you got in your cup today?
I brought the Cape Breton Tea Company Community Tea. And it's a beautiful layering of various herbals, and it just feels really good inside. And I don't have the package and the intention statement with me right now, but the idea of developing a community of people open to look for solutions for enhancing their wellness, aging with grace, feeling better, having less discomfort. This is the place to hang out, is with people who do what we do. So to the community.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, because that is one of my favorite blends. And it's also a lovely blend for those people who may have meetings or group activities or a project that they're working with other people, and it brings everybody together to be on the same page. That's the magic of that tea blend. And I don't do a board meeting or a big meeting without that tea blend right beside me. So thank you for mentioning that. All right, Kate, what have you got in your mug today?
I have a jasmine green tea, and I love the scent of jasmine. So I actually have several boxes of it. But green tea, it's got starts my day and gives me all the polyphenols I need. And I also add a little bit of coconut oil, so it helps my brain, so it gets all the nice, good fats. And so that's what I'm doing today. Jasmine green tea.
Beautiful. And I chose green tea as well, so we'll be able to highlight those herbs that are going to come forward from the green tea. So thank you for that. I'm going to highlight Lucky Dragon. And this is a tea that I've infused with grape leaves as well as rose petals. And the affirmation that guides this one, which is how we want you to be thinking about your journey with us for this podcast is create a clear vision for your outcome and then let go of your expectations. So often we try to dominate the way things are going to unfold. And that's when the secret nuggets can't get to us. So as we're talking about pain relief today, and you're thinking about, I know what I need, I want you to open that up, let it go, and be really open to the suggestions of the ideas we're going to be presenting to you. And then consider how might adopting some new ideas and letting go of some old ones change your outcome. And so with that, create a clear vision for outcome, then let go of your expectations. And the final piece of this particular T is the journey is the reward. So we're all looking for pain relief on the end, absolutely. But in the process, it's what you discover about yourself, your awareness, how you feel, how you move, and also how you discover new tools. That's going to be really important for down the road, not just the pain that you might be experiencing today and that you brought to the conversation and your reason for listening. All right, with that, the green tea, Kate already mentioned, it has the polyphenols in it. It is high in antioxidants. This helps you to really recover, bring more vitality to the cells. And then the grape leaves bring us the spiritual essence of self-love and strength. When we're looking at pain, very often we feel less strength, and we also are very critical. Oh, this is my bad side. This is my arthritic hand. This is my bad ankle. There's so many ways we label things. This is an opportunity to change that conversation around for you to self-love. And we're going to nourish it with rose petals. Rose petals open the heart, and they remind us that love and grace accompany healing and releasing. So as we go through today, you're gifting yourself a healing session. You're gifting yourself the wisdom of these wonderful people that are going to be sharing all of their experience. And you have the opportunity to take in some of these new ideas and change the way you've really been doing things. That's the open and release. Rose petals is going to help you with that. Okay, so with that, I say cheers from across the country and across North America.
The world.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so let's set the stage before we start diving into some questions. We're looking at feet and legs, and we want to know, how are you feeling? And I find the feet tell me so much information about how I'm functioning and how imbalanced I am. So I thought it might be nice today, instead of to just dive into the conversation, actually check in, how are you doing through your feet? So I would recommend for those people listening who aren't driving in a car, if you can stand up and stand on your feet, notice what they feel like. So I'm just going to step up. And what I'd like you to notice is the 9 points of the feet. This is what we talk about in Tai Chi. So you've got the 5 pads of the toes. Are they connected to the floor? And if they are connected to the floor, are they equal? And in many cases, some toes actually even disappear. You know they're there, but you actually can't feel them touching the ground. So just be aware. Then if you go to the big ball of the foot and the baby ball of the foot, the joint of the pinky toe and the big toe, does it feel equal across the foot there, or are you pressing with more weight on one side than the other? If you come down the side of the foot, the outside edge, you have a lot of weight there, or is it equally distributed in towards the arch of the foot? And then you have the heel. You have weight back in your heel. You have it more into the center of the foot. We call it the bubbling springs. So it's just below the ball of the foot. And there's a little dome there. You might have your weight there, but it might be further back, or you might be gripping with your toes. You want to be in the center, and you want everything to be equal all the way around. So if there's pressure points where you're pushing a little bit more on different parts of your foot, that's telling you you have imbalances in your body at the moment. As we go through our conversation today, it's a healing session, so you can come back and see how that might adjust. But now you also have the awareness of knowing you can check in to see if there are some imbalances going on in the body. Okay, Kate, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I was thinking of my book. You just went right through the footpad release.
So as you're standing on your foot right now, is it balanced or are you noticing a little bit out of balance?
I'm a little off balance, from all the heavy lifting and stuff I've been doing. Yeah, I'm off. And so I have more weight on the left right now than I do on the right.
Perfect. Okay. And Denise, how about for you?
I'm leaning forward a little bit more than I usually do. And I have forgotten to check into where my toe pads are. And I literally know my pointer toe is there, but I cannot feel it.
Hmm.
Mhm. And it's interesting because, yeah, you have that awareness, but then it isn't actually truly there. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to just have that opportunity to start there. So if you notice that you need a little help, and each one of us has a little something going on. So if that's the case, then you know that some of the tools we're going to share today could be very helpful for you, and you may notice that that's going to change for you. All right. This is how we get a healing session into our podcast. We have all these little things embedded. So Denise, I want to start with you. I want to do the idea for those people who haven't been listening to the podcast so far, the idea of the muscles to the organ systems and how they're related through the meridians. And then I thought if we could walk through an example of a system and some muscles, just so people could realize muscles are related to each other through these systems, and we can learn a lot about ourselves based on that. Can you start into that?
Sure. I'll take it back to the applied kinesiology chiropractors who started discovering, wow, when you touch a certain spot on the body, something somewhere else can either wake up or slow down, relax. And they started bringing in research, a lot of research from osteopathic physicians who were working with neurolymphatic points that we talked about in the earlier trilogy, neurovascular points. And they could teach people by activating these specific neurologically linked reflexes that they could wake up muscles that weren't carrying their share of the load. And when those muscles start working again, the other muscles nearby are sometimes not nearby. But there is an interesting relationship, like a pinball ball bouncing through the body, where if this guy in the foot, for example, the lower leg is finally back on the job, other muscles get to go, huh, I don't have to do all that work anymore. I just have to do my job. So this is a really new concept for just about anybody listening to this podcast. Anybody that I present to in a room full of people, they're going, what? And I cannot tell you how many people where they come in with problems, shoulder, and I go, well, that's interesting. But, I don't always work on the area you complain about because of the way the body's wired. And I cannot tell you how many times I have to work on something on the lower leg. And when that comes on board, the shoulder's much happier. Just because when you stand and you walk, your body is twisting and your neck and your spine are kind of doing a pigeon thing. It's very subtle, but we are moving kinetically. There's this whole chain of events that happens. So bringing that to the lower leg, there's some really interesting muscles on the back of the leg that relate to the adrenal glands. And I'm seeing tons of people in my clinic right now who are stressed, and they have a lot of challenges with those muscles. They're tight, they hurt. It's leading to plantar fasciitis because the way the tendon runs down the back of the calf and into the lower foot. The thing is, if those muscles are too tight and they're screaming at you, whether you know it or not, because sometimes you don't know it, which is really sad. But when you finally have pain, that's a signal, like, got to do something. But whether you feel these muscles are working too hard or not, because of stress, because of their connection to the adrenal glands, which was mapped out by those AK chiropractors through methods. I won't go into a deep lecture here, but they found that certain reflexes, when touched, or certain acupuncture points, even when out, not stimulated with a needle, but just a finger, they started going, wow, look at that. The Chinese mapped this out to this system. And they started building all this empirical evidence and how it all layered and connected. And you could be anywhere in the world, follow the system, and it would work. So taking that, a layperson like me, coming into the world and just helping my family and friends when I first started, miracles seemed to be happening. Now let's bring this to the front of the leg mainly, like the anterior tibial. That's on the bladder meridian. The posterior tibial is kind of on the side of the leg and sneaks down under the arch of the foot and connects to the bottom of the foot. And then there is the peroneus. So it's on the opposite side of the and goes under the foot. And so all of these happen to be on the bladder meridian. Now, why did I bother talking to you about the things on the back of the leg for a minute? Well, because to stand up straight, the muscles on the front and the back have to be in balance. One can't be pulling too hard. And if it's working too hard, it's you. And if it's tilting your posture, it's because the ones on the opposite side of the body have gone, huh. Or there are the people that do the tippy toe posture, kids that walk like on the tips of their toes. You've seen this because you teach dancers for about 400 years now. And you lead them through an activity to support the feet, and they're more grounded, they're planted, they're more centered. So whatever is going on with that lower leg, you need to work with it as a unit and also holistically. But I guarantee you that anything you do for the lower body, when it's much happier, it translates up through the whole body. You walk differently, your shoulders relax, you just move more freely. And so that's a little bit about how organs were found to be connected to muscles. So if you have a problem muscle, and I know that like some people tell me, stop using the word problem, that sets people off, but that's how people talk. Oh, I've got a problem here. A challenge can be overcome. Problems can too, but challenges are a little bit friendlier. When you address something that's out of balance in your body, you have no idea how that's going to ricochet and cause changes everywhere else. And I have a short story about that. When I was in my level 2 Touch for Health class, I believe I learned about the sacrospinalis muscle, which goes from the top of the neck all the way down by the sacrum. And it's groups of like ropes of muscles that start and stop. And some take over, there's the neck ones connecting to the thorax, going down to the lumbar to the sacrum, and they are all connected. And as a group, we call them the sacrospinalis. And at Muscle Tuners, we can get into the individual ones and find out which ones of you are the troublemakers. But as a group, that's what we were learning, because Touch for Health is easy. It's meant to be friendly and simple, and to take one thing and see what happens. Well, I was at an exchange, and we found out that my sacrospinalis muscle wasn't working. And out of the 42 muscles that we assess in Touch for Health, 39 of them were off the job.
Wow.
It was in my early days when I knew I was stressed out of my mind. There were a lot of things going on in my world, and I was seeing chiropractors who were like keeping me alive every couple of weeks. I'd go in and feel great. And then I learned about self-care. So there's this thing about when certain muscles are acting like know-it-alls, and, oh, you're not doing it good enough, let me do it. And they start to take over the energy of the other muscles, and they start stealing or borrowing muscles from the other guys. They just kind of go, why do I bother showing up for work? So this was discovered in my session. It could have been, maybe I was in level 3 by that time. They balance the muscle here in the back of along my spine. And I know we're going to talk about spine next week. But you know what happened to all my muscles by working that out? Everybody switched on. And the most amazing thing was I redeveloped an arch in my foot.
Wow.
Because all these muscles, how they connect to the bottom of the foot and the shin and all that stuff. And that was magical for me to experience that. So that's a little bit about what are you saying, that they're all connected to something? And when your muscles start firing, your organs start to work more easily. They don't feel blocked. They don't feel like they have to do 16 things before the thing they're supposed to be doing. And it was incredibly revitalizing. So I'll give somebody else a chance to talk.
Oh, thank you.
But it's like experiences like that happen when you don't really know anything. You're just following a system and it works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that lovely connection of how one area of the body can affect the other. And so often we're trying to put an orthotic into the shoe. Yes. And that's not the problem. That's not even the fix even, because it's still not going to do anything in support. Wow, just to know that the arch of the foot could be manipulated from the back. That's amazing.
It didn't even touch the foot. Aside from doing a couple little muscle tests, just like 2 seconds. Can you hold this weight? Nope. Can you hold this weight? Nope. Can you hold this weight? Nope. Didn't actually do anything to the foot, and it bounced out.
Wow. So when we're looking at pain, so as you're listening and you're thinking about the pains that you might be having and the reason for listening to this podcast, and you're thinking about how you've been focusing on that pain point and you've been focusing on fixing that area, how might another area that you're not familiar with or even have observed might be the key piece that you need to be looking at, and how can we support that? Okay, so I'm going to move over to Kate. And Kate, you have a lot of background with athletes. Now, athletes, they do a lot of hard things on their bodies to train and to do a race or to do an event. And then they have to do their recovery. So you have the experience of kind of going to the extremes and then pulling back and then having to repair. Can you talk a little bit about alignment and recovery with the athletes that you've worked with?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things before we get to the competition and during the training, they just usually come in and we start from scratch. And the first thing I always tell them is to bring their shoes with them, because I want to see how worn down their shoes are. But it also, as I start to muscle test, to see where we are with the foot pads. And then I look at the alignment of the leg all the way up to see if the knee is tracking and then where the hip joint is, so that they have bilateral balance when they run. That's the beginning. And then as we go through and we see the response in the testing for the ball pad, the lateral pad, and the heel pad, then we look at and say, okay, if this is not testing strong enough, and I'm using strong and weak for reasons, is that tells me that the muscles up the leg are not responding well either. So we really are looking down from the hip to the foot. And the one thing I want to say about the feet first is that, it's my favorite part of the body. We did hands last week, but I do that too. But I love my feet, because in all my travels that I did, the one thing I did after everything I did that night was to massage my feet, because they were in hiking boots and carrying a 50-pound pack or whatever I was doing, that my feet could not be neglected. Well, I feel the same way about the athletes who do neglect their feet because they wear shoes that when they run, they're actually sometimes running more on their toes, and they end up with hammer toes. And that's going to throw off their posture, but also the gait itself because of the way that the feet are. And usually it's the second toe that's a hammer toe. We also can look at bunions or calluses on the side of the big toe that if they're pronating in, instead of ducky walking, pronating out, then we have to look at where the shoe is. Because if they're wearing the shoe out on the outside of the foot and down toward the heel, that's reflecting all the way back up into the hip and back, all the way to the top of the head. So as Denise said, you change one little thing and then the whole body shifts. So when we look at feet for recovery, I mean, to start out to make sure they're in alignment and the muscles are where they're supposed to be, the foot pad is extremely important to look at the ball, the lateral, and the heel so that you actually feel them. So one of the things I had them do was take off their shoes and socks and walk on the floor and feel and tell me where they felt their foot. What do you feel? And there was always a discrepancy between both feet. So then I would go to work as a therapist and I would test and then I would release them. And it's releasing the fascia of the foot, going up through the ball, pulling out on the lateral and going down through the heel to create a shift. And then they would walk again. And the difference was amazing because they could then feel the foot, all three sides on the ground, and the other foot wasn't. So those always made a difference. And then I would teach them how to do this so that they could take care of themselves, basically. But what I also noticed was that as we did all the other testing, checking out other muscles like the psoas muscle, which is the kidney meridian, and we looked at the quadriceps too for intestines, and we looked at all the things that had to do with running. And these are things that they could rub neurolymphatic reflex points as they ran so that these muscles stayed strong but cleansed, did not get toxic, and then they stayed bilaterally balanced at the same time. And that we demonstrated in '89 in the Ironman. That was incredible to watch everybody come in that I worked with, and it was amazing. Everybody was okay except tired. Everybody can do this. It's looking at people posture. Feet is your posture. They reflect it. And if you knock-kneed or you're duck waddling, that goes all the way back up to the hips. And so all these bones start shifting outward or inward. That throws the femur off in the hip joint. That reflects back up into the low back. So then we have another discussion, and then the spine shifts. And so then we can think of, oh, I'm going to have a wearing down of a disc possibly. So if we look at medical terms from Western medicine, all that shifts, but it's an energy shift too. It isn't just a physical shift, it's an energy shift. Because when those things start to happen, the nervous system shuts down. It's not 100%. So maybe your kidneys and your liver and your stomach and all the other organs, intestines, are not getting 100% power because there's a vertebra that's sitting off on the wrong side. It isn't just about going to see someone to fix it. It's about all those muscles that are overworked and need to be worked on and reset so that energy flow, they take the stress off the joint, they open up the holes the nerves flow through, and then your power is restored. As Denise said, you shift one thing and then everything goes back up the whole way. And that's what I was doing with these guys and women too. And to watch their times and to see them being so overjoyed at setting personal best, but the recovery to me was the most enriching thing for me to see that what I was doing and what I was showing them worked. And they said it too, and they knew it. At first they thought, oh, it's just my training. It's just my training. But after rubbing all those points and sifting through everything and doing all the stuff that I had showed them, that they recognized that all the stuff, and I told them about taking classes from Touch for Health and everything else so that they could learn themselves and teach others. And a lot of them did, actually. Several did do that. Took a basic course so that they could muscle test fellow athletes that they were traveling with. So I felt that was really cool. So, the feet are miraculous. But I also want to say, are you taking care of your feet? Everybody out there, that no matter how old you are, it doesn't matter. If they have rollers, roll them on, put your feet on a roller and roll them. Activate your zones. So Eunice D. Ingram wrote a wonderful book on foot reflexology, and all those zones were designed back in the early 1900s. And so here is something that you can do yourself. You don't need a degree or certificate to do. Just start rubbing your feet. And as I said, when I would travel, that's the one thing I did, was to massage my feet. But I knew that I was helping the energy all the way up into my body, into my nervous system, up my skeleton, to maintain so that I could keep going. That's the bottom line, is to keep going. And you can feel it. It's an instant feel. It's not hocus pocus by any means. And I love what I learned through Touch for Health and all the other things that I've learned, because it gives me the strength to start my day, to get going, just rubbing my points, which I think everybody should learn.
Mhm. Beautiful. As you were talking about shoes, I was reminded of taking my son to buy shoes when he was like 12. And he wanted a pair of Nike running shoes. He was very specific. It had to be a certain color, and that's what everybody, was wearing. And we got to the store, he put them on, and I was standing behind him, and his Achilles tendon worked.
Yeah.
And I went, I don't think those are going to be the right shoe. So I said, hon, this is what's going on at the back of your foot. You're not going to have the foot power that you need. And of course, but Mom, this is the shoe. This is the shoe that everybody's wearing. I said, well, why don't we find a different pair that could be acceptable, try it on and see if there's any difference. So we put that next pair on, and the Achilles tendon went straight. I said, now go for a little walk, and you tell me which one is going to be the one that's going to be most comfortable. And he did choose the pair that was not what he came in for. But he knew that that was going to make a difference on the way he was walking. And I don't think people realize that when they're looking for shoes. They're going for comfort. Oh, they've got a nice padded sole on them. They feel good at the moment, but checking in on those things and checking in, how do you walk?
I want to add something else in about shoes.
Yeah.
So for women, it just gnaws at me when I see pointed shoes. When somebody stuffs their toes into a pair of shoes that is like this. And I think about the bunions and the hammer toes and one toe looped over another toe to squish them into this shoe. I can't even imagine what your feet look like. And you have no stability, you have no balance when you do something like that. The other thing about tennis shoes is all the different manufacturers, Nike, New Balance, I can't think of all of them, Saucony, all of them make them different. So you're right about going into a store, a shoe store, specifically for tennis shoes, and trying them on to find out which one aligns you, get your Achilles lined up so that you don't have a strain or a stressor already before you even walk out the door with these things. The new shoes that I see today, I have a bad habit. I watch people. And when I watch people, all these new shoes that these kids are wearing, I see people's where their feet are angled in, and they got such thick soles on them that I see no stability in them. I see a lot of foot problems, and I look and I see their posture and I see hips. It's very interesting to sit and watch when they when you walk through a mall or you're out hiking and you see things, I don't think anybody recognizes, like you said, to try different shoes on to make sure that the muscle, especially the Achilles, is lined up and it's not tipping to the wrong side, whichever way. I think everybody buys shoes for fads. They don't buy them for health and stability, because that's what your feet need. They need stability and they need to be grounded. Um, that's one of the big things. I see a lot of the barefoot shoes now. You see, I've worn them too, and it's great actually, because then you start to allow your foot muscles and your leg muscles to adapt down to like you're walking on the ground all the time. That's actually nice. So those are things, and it takes a bit of an adaptation if you've been in other shoes for a while with arch supports and other things. The other thing that I want to say too is about orthotics. I don't like them because it's a crutch. If you don't fix the muscles and align the muscles first before you add anything for support, inserts or anything else, that you're just supporting the out of balance. You're not really correcting anything. It may help you temporarily to take stress off your foot, but then it just gets worse, because when they fix the orthotic to go a certain mold, then it's increasing the stressor. And so, I always try to fix the muscles, with muscle testing and monitoring them to see where they are and working with them, and then the leg muscles to the hips, through the knees, because it'll untrack your knees and then you have knee pain. I really think that that's a lot of the problems that people aren't recognizing, that if you fix these things from the basics of what we're doing and resetting the energy field at the same time, the muscles then turn on and everybody else turns on at the same time. So I hope people that are listening to this will think twice about the orthotics and maybe try to search out people that would help them correct the muscles and the energy frequencies, so everything works in unison.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that segues us perfectly to what I was going to ask Denise next, which was to touch into a little bit about the gaits and the gait points and what the gait action even is, so
Right.
people can understand that whole body perspective. Denise, do you want to come in here?
Sure. Well, the gates, man. As I have been teaching people, I get greater respect every time I teach a level 1, level 2, level 3 touch for health class, and now muscle tuning. I've developed a huge respect for some of the things that were like just little things tucked into the curriculum as we were going along. And the gates are one of the prizes of resetting gait patterns. So maybe your listeners have heard of horses trotting or galloping. That's a gait. And that's how their foreleg and their hind leg are working in coordination. And as humans, we have a gait when we walk and when we run. And hopefully, when your left leg is forward, your right arm is swinging forward. And then as you change legs, it could be subtle or you can exaggerate it on purpose. You want that action from this shoulder and that hip to be connected. So how do we make that happen? Is by rubbing points on the feet. There are reflexes there that we can muscle monitor and say, oh, look, this muscle and this muscle, when they work together, when you stride forward, they shut down. Or how about if you step backwards, that shuts down. What about stepping side to side? And you don't have to be a tennis player. We do this all the time at the counter when we're cooking in the kitchen, getting in and out of cars. Everything's so functional. And your body is working in all these dimensions, diagonals, forward, sideways, and they come into the center or out to the side. All these can be simply assessed and corrected using gait points. So I was assessing somebody for her license as a muscle tuner specialist, and she had a fabulous facility, and she had her laptop set up at in the spot where her client came in, and she had to demonstrate certain things. And when she got to the gait part, she had the person walk to the wall way over there and come back. And I'm observing her, she's observing her client, and she started testing the muscles one set at a time, correcting them if they were found out of balance, having the person walk and come back. And I'm going, how cool is this? Because most people don't stop and test it and observe it every step of the way. And so this woman, out of the six gaits, I think 5 of them were off. And every time one of them was reset, her whole walking changed, her posture changed. It was, as a teacher, one of the most brilliant observations and demonstrations I've ever seen. And I've taught classes in person where I used to teach the gait reset first, and then I would go and try and teach the reactive muscles, which I told you before about the bullying back muscles of mine that were bullying all the other muscles. The only person in the room who didn't have a reactive muscle pattern was our assistant, who was sitting behind the desk. And I said, would you please come up so I can demonstrate this for the group so they can practice? Because working with those points in the feet reset all this miscommunication between how all these body parts work in coordination with one another. One of the things I do to assess how I'm doing every day, because I'm nearing my mid-60s now, and I insist on putting my socks on while I'm standing. I don't sit on a bench or the edge of the bed. Yeah, I stand on one leg, bend forward, lift my leg, put my socks on, do the other one. And if I am not 100% stable or secure, yeah, I could go and tune up a bunch of the hip muscles, and this, that, and the other thing. But what's the easiest thing is to activate the gaits. And I was online with a physiotherapist once, and I said, we're thinking of collaborating with one another. Do you think we could do this with the group that we're going to be leading? And for example, this is a really easy test, like how you had everybody just stand and notice. I'm going, let's do something functional here. Bend over and imagine you're putting on your sock. And I literally took my sock off and I showed her. I says, okay, so what's going on here? Because I'm wobbly. She named a whole bunch of things. I would work with this and I work with, all the names of all these muscles. And I went, oh, just give me a moment. Popped down off the screen. I activated the points on my feet, came back, stood back, and I put my sock on. I was 100% balanced. And she says, what did you do? I was fast. I went, that's right. And another story is we had a summer fair here where I live, where you walk for miles and miles and miles. It's all pavement. It's all concrete. Very little sitting all day, and you can get tired. And I'm walking through this exhibition hall where there's people that are vending the knife, they're selling the knives and all the new gadgets and whatever. There was a guy who was selling orthotics, and I went, oh, cool, look at that. He's got a great big ink pad with pieces of newsprint that he puts on it, and then he invites you to stand on it. And then you step off and it shows you where your weight is on your feet. And I went, oh, I've never seen that before. So I said, may I? And he says, absolutely. That's what I'm here for. And he's going, oh, you need orthotics. And I'm looking at my pattern and I'm going, ooh, so my feet are definitely not balanced right now. And I went, wait a minute. And I bend over and I'm rubbing these points on my feet. And I said, would you please humor me? I just did something to help reset things in my feet. And he goes, nope, you need orthotics. Nothing can fix this kind of an imbalance. I went, would you like to do a little experiment and let me step on the pad again? Because I'm really curious. And he went, sure. Because he's going, this is going to prove she needs the orthotics. And I stepped on the pad and it was a perfect imprint. And he looked at me and I went, sorry. not buying your orthotics today, because I see clients that come in with orthotics. And the most aggravating thing is I go, wait a minute. And I'm looking at their leg lengths when they're laying on the massage table. And I'm going, wait a minute, what foot did you say you have one orthotic? What foot are you wearing it under?
Oh, yeah.
And it is on the long leg. So imagine you've got, and then you prop that up, and now that's jamming it up into the hip, and the short leg is still short, and you're still walking like this, whether you notice it or not. And then going, oh dear. So it's this, let's just balance your hip muscles, your leg muscles, everything. And let's see how you feel walking without that orthotic before you go out the door. And they're going, I don't believe it. And that's just because the day that somebody fits an orthotic, you have a certain compensation pattern in your muscles. That's all it's telling you, is that in that moment, something's jammed up. That looks like you've got a short leg on that side. So they give you the orthotic on that leg, but then you go and you do something a week, a day, an hour later, and things are moved around. It's not the right fit. It's very much like getting the right pair of glasses, the right prescription. Because if you've got it off, it stresses you out. So, and flip-flops, don't let me get started on the people who come in with body pain, and I'm going, what are those? And they go, oh, that's just because, getting from the house to the car. I don't wear them all the time. I'm going, you're lying. And they're going, well, yeah, I do wear, they are my favorites. They're very convenient. And just don't even get me started on how flip-flops are evil. I mean, they're okay when you're at the beach and all that, right? But wearing them continually. All right, I'll hand it back to you. I hope I answered some of your questions. Wherever you started at, I went down that rabbit hole.
I have a short story I would like to impart. This is many moons ago. It seems like decades. I had a little old lady. She had cancer, and her daughter, and she had a long leg, short leg. And what the docs were always doing is not just the orthotics, they were changing the heel of the shoe to match the other leg. So she came in and she hadn't worn regular shoes or flats in 20 years. And her daughter was getting ready to take her to Europe, her last big hurrah. And her daughter, she said to me, I would give anything to have regular shoes for this trip. And so, I started muscle testing or looking at everything and seeing she had a long leg, real long leg, short leg. And what I do is I look at the core muscles. And so I released her psoas muscle and her quadratus lumborum and her diaphragm. And I got worked my way through all the different tests and reset them all. And I had her stand up, and I rubbed gait points too. And I did all the gaits, and I had her stand up, and she stood flat-footed evenly for the first time in 20 years. She cried. And I cried because to do that for somebody's last wish was incredible. So when she walked out of my house, barefoot too, she went those things. She took all her shoes and she threw them in the trash. And her daughter took her out and she bought like 20 pairs of shoes. And she was going to wear all of them on this trip. Amazing. Her husband later, after she had passed, came and told me that that was probably the biggest gift you could have given her, was to be able to walk normally for the first time in years, instead of just building a crutch all the time, which did nothing and threw her back out, threw everything out. And energetically, she had so much energy. Her daughter said that it was amazing. She just enjoyed the trip thoroughly. And yeah, but there's a lot of people like that have that same dynamic. And so you get shoes with lifts and lifts. and they throw you way off. It's not just the orthotic, it's the lift. And if one leg is shorter than the other, and then the lift is a little different on one side than the other, well, think what that's doing all the way up to you. And so the pain factor and the 100% conductivity of the nervous system kind of goes out the door. I mean, you're looking at major possible illness, stresses on the major organs and things for detoxification and energy levels of the kidneys, the heart. So, so not to throw a wrench in all the podiatrists and orthopedics and everything, but this is simple for us as practitioners and people who do this type of work to correct simply without a shot, without a needle, and just by a simple touch, reset the energy field of a muscle and watch everything just sort of go back to where it's supposed to be. So what you can give somebody is tremendous. Anybody that does this work has the capability to change a life. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And I think something interesting amongst all the amazing realizations is it's energetic.
Yes.
And people don't realize how tiring it is to stay in those patterns, and how, I need this much sleep. I find I'm so tired by noon. I need a pick me up by 2:00 in the afternoon. Like all these things that they think is normal.
Yes.
And it's only because the energy does not have the capacity to run fully through the body. And so it's wearing out. These muscles just don't have what they need, and the organ systems can't function. So you do get these tired areas in the body. Yeah.
One other thing, we call that aging.
Right?
Where you don't have to have this if you do this type of work and you can help others. The energy field, it just shifts, and that person has more energy. It's like the lady in one of our other podcasts that I talked about who was told she was going to die. and yet she looked great. And all I did was work on her and reset all this stuff, by rubbing points, testing, and then she doing it to herself. She's not dead. But how many people are feeling like that? There's a lot of people that know nothing about what we do, have not experienced it, but if they take a class from somebody, whether it's Touch for Health or Denise or anything else, and Michelle and any of us that do this type of work, learn it. It's so valuable for your health. And when you age, as you get older, that's what you want to look at, is what can I do? Because medical system, because I'm older now, the medical system, after you reach a certain place, don't want to see you anymore. Oh, you're too old. You don't need that test anymore. I'm sort of dead as for they don't want to look at anything because they know maybe in 5 years or 10 years you'll be gone. We're all living longer lives. Why can't we live with quality and pain-free and understand how to take care of these energy fields that run through us all the time and do it? Teach your partner how to do it, and you can work on each other. I've had that. I had a couple who came to me specifically to learn how they could work with each other when they traveled. And they had my Sports Touch book, and I taught them everything. And I was in an airport one day, and they walked up to me, and I didn't remember them because it had been such a long time. And then they started rubbing points right in front of me. I started laughing, and they said, "It works. We have been around the world, and we've done it everywhere, and we still have energy." What a wonderful thing. What a wonderful thing. So that's when I know that what I do makes a difference, as we all do make a difference in what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Kate has mentioned her book. So Sports Touch, and you can pick that up. So that's a great resource. And Denise has several ways that she works with the gaits as well. So she has programs that you can get from Muscle Tuners International. And what I'm going to share right now is I'm going to take those gaits and I'm going to show you how to rub the points, but I'm going to do it on the hands, just because of the simplicity of that for a podcast. But you're welcome to rub your feet if you wish, but we're going to transfer it from the hands to the feet. But what I want to share with you is on the canbewell.org site, Canadian Association of Bioenergetic Wellness, we created a book called Bioenergetic Essentials, which is right on the main landing page. You can see free ebook. And that book has the foot rub that I'm going to share with you in it. So it's for free. And this is a great way for you to get started with realizing the potential. But even as I sit here and I've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm listening to your stories and I'm listening to the background, the gaits, they're like a secret code for the whole body. And so I just want people to think about as we do this little exercise, it's a tiny exercise, but there's so much more that we could be learning. So let's try this. So what I'll get you to do is make a fist with one hand. Notice what the fist feels like. Make a fist with the other hand. They might be the same, might be different. You'll notice how much you can close your fingers up, what the strength might be in the hand as you clench it, just to get that feel. All right. And we did already standing on the feet, so the awareness of the feet before we started. So now what I'm going to get you to do is just rub down between the bones on the hand as if you were rubbing down between the bones in the feet, which you could do as well, but we'll just do it this way. And so you're just going to firm pressure on that. And Kate, afterwards, I'm going to let you dive in. After I've done my little bit, I'm going to get you to dive in with some of the pieces that you know, because I know this is we both are so passionate.
And how long are we rubbing for?
About 10 seconds. I've talked way too long.
So then we keep moving.
So now we're going to go to the outside edge of it would be the ball of the big toe, the ball of the pinky toe. I'm going to get you to rub the outside edge of that and that same firm pressure. So now we've touched between the bones in the feet, on the foot, and now we're getting the outside edge. And I'm going to add a couple little things, which is more than gaits. So I'm just going to get you to just move the fingers and the hand around and just give the bones some space. And as Kate talked about those beautiful pointed shoes, very often our feet are so constricted in shoes. Dancers wear shoes that are way too tight for their foot. And that creates all kinds of havoc. So this is really important to put that space back in. Now I'm going to get you to go to the end of each digit. So if you were grabbing onto your toe, you'd be squeezing onto your big toe, but I'm grabbing my thumb and I'm going to draw a circle around with my thumb and just move the joint. And you can pull out from the hand a little bit so there's some space in that joint, and then move to the second finger or the second toe. And we've got a couple things happening. One, we're working with joints. The other is we're working with the endpoints of meridians. So the squeezing of that finger, we get to awaken some of those energy points. I've moved to the third finger. Then I've got to the fourth, and then the pinky. And then I'm going to just get you to squeeze along the wrist. So just taking your hand and just firmly pressing your hand along from the forearm, through the wrist, down the hand, just applying some pressure. And I'm just going to travel back up again because it was feeling really good. Okay. And then this is the part where when we're doing muscle monitoring, we can turn a muscle on or off. We can do that by pulling on the fibers of the muscle. And so what I'm going to do is use my thumb and my pointer finger, and I'm going to spread them apart. So for those people listening on the podcast, I'm putting my fingers together like an A-OK. I've got my thumb going to my pointer finger, and then I'm going to pull apart. I'm going to do that along the length from the center of my hand. I'm going to go towards the knuckles and towards the wrist at the same time. So I'm just pulling apart. And that's how we can turn muscles on, is pull those fibers apart. This is one of the ways that we can turn a muscle on. Now we have long fingers, so we can go down the fingers too and just go into the center knuckle and then just go from the length of the finger to the end of the finger and all the way to the hand. So we're just doing that. And then we've got the palm. So we can repeat the whole thing into the palm of the hand. This is where my grandson would start giggling because it's ticklish. And then you can go along the inside of each of those fingers. All right. So that is what I call the feet first system. That's part 1 foot rub. Okay. So if you make a fist now with that hand, see how it feels. And maybe you had in the knuckles, it's feeling a little bit more articulation. And then go to the other hand and see if it feels the same.
You can tell the difference.
We're smiling. All of us can feel the difference in the joints, the power of the hand, the way that it's working. Okay. So now what I want you to do is transfer that from your hand to your foot. So put your hand on your knee and just send how that feels down to your foot. And what I usually find is all of a sudden the toes will start to tingle. Sometimes my calf muscle will tingle too. It wakes up as well. And you're just going to transfer it down there. And if you like, you can just wiggle the toes on that foot, compare it to the other foot, and you might notice they're not quite the same. All right. So this is a little bit of, transferring things to other areas. But you can know that if you're in a car, traveling on a plane, you could wake up your feet by just being able to rub your hands even. So let's go to the other side so we can make it even. So we're going to rub down between the bones. I won't talk as much. So we've got about 10 seconds. And then we'll go to the outside edge. So you've got your hand is going on either side of the joints of the pinky and the second, in this case, second finger on the hand, but it would be the big toe joint on the foot. Then we're just going to go to, wiggling, putting space in between the bones. And again, the importance of that, especially as Kate, you were talking about those hikers and their hiking shoes, spending hours in a boot to make such a difference. Okay, so then we're just going to squeeze the end of the finger. So I've got the thumb. I'm just going to draw a circle around with the joint. And if it was my toes, I'd be squeezing the end of the big toe. Now I'm on the second toe. And then I'm just going to come down. When I do this with little people, it's this little piggy went to the market, this little piggy stayed home. I have lots of other rhymes that I've done with the kids. Now you're going to squeeze all over. This would be where I'd go wee, 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 all the way home if I was doing my nursery rhyme. All right, that's just applying that extra bit of pressure. So I've gone from the wrist to the end of the hand, and then I went back again. And now I'm going to take those fingers and pull them apart. And I'm going to go along the center of the hand, going to the knuckle and the wrist. And then I'm going to go to the thumb, and I'm going to travel with my fingers. And then I'm going to go to the inside of the hand and do that same pull apart. So that's how we're turning on muscles. And now if you compare those two hands, you may notice how they may feel closer to the same. Okay, does that feel better? We've got hands that match now. Okay, now take that hand, put it on your knee, travel that feeling of openness, expansion, and the power that's on down to your foot. And you may notice, again, the feet might tingle, they might not. I'm pretty tuned to when mine engage, so they'll start tingling right away. All right. And so now what we want to do is go back to that original posture we started with the podcast. Standing on your feet. And see now if where there were imbalances before, if the feet have now evened out in some ways. And they might have shifted and not quite got so that it's fully balanced, but we still have a little bit more to talk about. So you may notice that the pads of the toes now might be more connected to the floor. or at least the awareness is there. And the distribution of weight may have shifted to be more across all the foot. And you may notice now, this is what I say in my classes, you would notice now that if you wanted to jump, you would easily be able to just jump without having to shift your weight from the heel to the ball of the foot, go down and then go up. That would be adjusting to be able to jump. But now you actually are right in that bubbling spring, you would be able to jump. And I did this in a class I taught last week. And the oldest person in the class was 92. And I said, now see if you feel like you want to jump. And the look he gave me, that's the last thing on his mind. And he actually, when we went back the second time, jumped, which was amazing. So, all right, Kate, I know you would love to dive in. What would you like to add to that?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, there's so much. I have so many stories. I have so many things. Um, I find the body so enriching when I first started this career and journey. I didn't know anything. Like Denise, you have something happens to you and you dive in. And I knew zero about anything in massage therapy. And then once I got out of that, and then I discovered Touch for Health, and I I just remember when I had it done to me, and then the results were so instantaneous. And when I work with people, I see the instantaneous because it's so easy. It's when I show the carpal tunnel program. People who've had surgery and have gone in, and we just did the hands for the feet, but it's also the hands. These are Bashi points. And when you go in and you do this, that shifts and changes everything all the way up into the elbow, to the shoulder, actually. And we did this on stage with someone who'd had several surgeries in her hands and her elbow. And my comment was, are we cutting your head off next? Because it was just one big line of the pain. And on stage, we did the 12 steps and we heard everything move, everything move. And then we did the muscles, you know. Um, it was amazing to see everything happen and blood flow change, and you hear the oh happen, and everybody in the audience is doing it too. I have worked with a lot of different people and careers, musicians to athletes to my stressed out executives, as I called them. And it was always the same, that you go in and you start muscle testing or monitoring their body to see what's causing the stress, what's out of balance that needs to be adjusted and corrected and reset, and then give them their homework. Not always did they do it, but my athletes did. Those are the ones that stuck with it because they had performance stuff. It was the personal best, the performance to win the gold, to win. And they'll do anything. I mean, and that's one nice thing about working with athletes is that when you can show them something that makes such a huge shift and difference so that they can lift 300 pounds easier than they couldn't lift it at all, or jump higher, in the pole vault, or the long jump, or anything else that they could do better because everything was in alignment. I think, between all of us and the things that we have done is the stories of watching people recover and reclaim their energy, their life, to go on and think that they're not done. And I think that's the important thing with this work is that we give that, and everybody can do it. I hope people who are looking at this, with the light bulbs have gone on. And for them, look somewhere, go up on the internet, find something. We're all available, but there's a lot of us too. And don't give up. Find somebody that does this work. Uh, Life's not over. Life's not over. You don't have to be stuck with your pain. You don't have to be stuck with a limp. You don't have to be stuck with shoes that are this high, or orthotics. Just, you know, research, trust. Anyway, I feel blessed and grateful for the work because it's helped me in so many ways. We all become our own guinea pigs when we find this work. We correct ourselves and then we can correct somebody else because we have the stories to tell. And we know within ourselves, that it works. And so you can talk about it with sincerity. That's the whole thing.
Mhm.
So thank you for letting me be here because I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Denise, I know we're coming up to, well, probably past the hour. We could go on and on because it's such an exciting topic and we all do really have so much that we owe to these techniques that have helped us. Do you want to add anything further to the conversation and before we close?
Oh, wow.
Well, I am going to, show, stop blur my background, bring me back. Come on back. I had somebody's mother come in to me a long time ago, and she was going back to the old country in Europe, and her knees were bothering her. And she's sitting there and she's talking, and she's rubbing on her knees and the bottom end of her quads like this. And she's constantly rubbing and rubbing, which, maybe that's bringing in circulation and it's warm and she feels it's nurturing. But I went, let's show you something right now. Just lift your leg up. And I just gently pushed here and I'm going, stay here. It's like, and I'm not pushing hard. I'm like, here, I'll use my baby finger, just 2 fingers. She couldn't hold her leg up a couple inches off the floor. And she says, well, that's why I'm here. I need to be able to walk when I'm over there in Europe. And we walk everywhere and there's cobblestones and all that stuff. And I went, I understand. So I switched on the quad muscles using one of the reflexes we probably talked about previous edition. And then I tested the muscles. And then I'm able to push a little harder. And I'm going, look. And she's going, well, good strength. Thanks. I'm going, yes, you do. Now rub like this again. Earlier I had said, I notice you're doing this. You've got to stop doing this. And we have our patterns. We get set in our ways. So she sat there and she chatted with me for a little bit again. She's doing this. And then I says, may I test those legs again now? That they feel better? She said, oh, yes. And I went, no energy. No energy.
Wow.
And I said, would you mind, instead of rubbing sideways and around like that, you're confused muscles. They don't know what to do. Rub them from your hip down over your knee. Can you do that? And so instead, she was just rubbing in line with the fibers of the quadricep muscles. She wasn't working against them. I says, it's like ironing. You've ironed in your life. She says, yes. Just imagine you're ironing those muscles all the way down like that. And then I checked with muscle testing, and she was strong again. And I said, now do you see why I want you to stop rubbing around and around? So at least if you're going to rub your knees, rub in the direction that the muscles work for you. And she got it. And I wanted to give that demonstration to the watchers, or to talk about it out loud for those who are listening, because sometimes we do a little action that, unknown to ourselves and the magic of our body, we are actually switching things off with our habits. So that's one thing about the legs that I can teach you. And if you get really keen, go look online and say, show me an image of the muscles of the legs and iron all those muscles from one end to the other, gently, firmly, not painfully. If it's painful, your body is not reacting well. Just go lighter because they need a rub. And early on, I think in the first episode, Kate's saying, massage yourself. Don't be scared to massage yourself. And generally, yes. But in the case of knee pain, this specifically can help a lot.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm laughing thinking about my weekend on cement and rubbing exactly the way you were saying. And then standing up and I'm like, oh my goodness, I was turning those off, not even thinking about it. And then I would sit down and do a Tai Chi move and then it reactivate. So I was doing it slightly different, but I hadn't realized what I was doing. So, and me after all this experience. Thank you for that share. Oh my goodness. Kate, anything you would like to add before we close today?
No. Do we get started again? You know, I've done classes, a lot of them early on, and you know, the things that I put in the books were things that I learned from working on somebody. So within Sports Touch, there are what we call rituals, and for every ritual that I did, I actually worked on a soccer player or a basketball player or a runner or a walker or a hiker, and I wrote the rituals for them. Baseball player. I had a father come to me one time because his son, he didn't want him to blow out his shoulder, you know, in pitching. He was a pitcher. And so I designed a pitching ritual for his son. And he never had a problem with his arm because he did the work that needed to turn the muscles on for the arm muscles and the hands and the upper back and the neck. So I went through a whole sequence looking at pitching. And I think that's so nice to find out that our parents are looking after us and trying to find things to help us become what we want to become. I was at a NAM, National Association of Music Merchants, and there was a 5-year-old drummer just playing, and his father was a drummer, and he was playing, and I was told about him, so I went over and I watched him. That poor little kid. But he loved to drum. But when he came off of it, and I asked, could I just touch his arms? And I literally just went like this, and he screamed with pain. So nobody had ever done anything to work with his muscles. He was just in another zone when he was drumming, but his muscles were churning off everything. And so I went to work and I'm standing there and I have a crowd around me watching me work on this with the parents filming it, so that this is what you need to do. And that poor little kid, we worked on him for a while and his pain went away and his arms felt better and he could grip again. He could hardly grip those drumsticks. You never know where you're going to walk into a situation that needs your expertise, and don't be afraid to jump in. I've jumped in a lot of different places. So, you know, you look and you see things, you know, that they don't know, they don't recognize. Musicians especially don't recognize because they're in their head and heart, not in the physical when they're playing. And once you get them to tap into that physical, they want to have a long career, but they won't have one if they keep going the way they do because they're actually turning things off the more they do it. It's repetitive strain then. So that's another interesting thing. No matter where you are and the clientele that you end up working with, or that lone person running on the beach, you know, and you watch them and you go, let me show you something, you know. I remember going to the Ironman and you can't touch them when they're running, you know, but I was walking, going up, doing some stuff, and I watched him and he was having a hard time walking. And he was just really, and I sort of said, hey, hey. And I started rubbing for the quadriceps underneath my rib cage. I said, do this. And I said, do it firmly. And so he's doing it and he's rubbing both sides. And I said, now I want you to come into the middle. Here's your navel, come right out. And I'm whispering too. He's come walking closer. And I said, now rub here in the middle, both sides off of the navel up high, about an inch. That's another hip flexor. So I said, just rub that one and then drink some water, please. And then I had him rub the diaphragm because that's part of your low back too. And he's rubbing these points as he's loping along, and then all of a sudden you watched his eyes and he just went, whoa, it doesn't hurt anymore. And he took off and he was waving. I never saw him again, but he was waving, yay! And he just took off because then he could run again. Again, you never know where you're going to be when you watch people, and you just can't be afraid to step in. Yeah, sometimes, but I'm pretty aggressive at saying hi and saying, here, let me show you something, just like
Can help with that.
knees, just with the knees, it's the same thing, I think that's the important thing for all of us. Don't be afraid to speak out of what you do now. This is a new art, even though we've all been around for a long time doing this, there's still a lot that's not done. And I think, and hopefully more people will learn our techniques and even minimally just use them. So yeah, take a class. Call Denise. Go call Touch for Health. Call Michelle. Get a class.
Well, thanks for that lovely shout out. And my little program that's great for self-care for athletes or anybody that owns feet is called Tune-Ups for Your Feet. And it's it enhances the bioenergetic wellness handout that canbewell.org has on their website, because I add extra activations, muscle movements and things you can do to really get the brain to go, got it. So rub the points in the feet because they're always magical. And if you really want to permanently fix things a little bit more permanently, that's a little program that I have, and it doesn't require any muscle testing at all. So Michelle, I'm so happy and grateful that you're giving us a space to tell stories, to share about our experiences, to develop awareness for people of how our bodies, our marvelous bodies, are put together in such amazing ways, and how we can work with our nervous system, with our energetic system, rather than fighting it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you both for being here and bringing this to light. And also, it's such a delight to just be able to talk about it, yes, because we go and do these things for people out in public or in our clinical settings, but then we don't get a chance to actually share these stories very often. And every day has such miraculous stories coming, and it's just beautiful. So thank you both. And I know we went a little bit longer with this, but I think it was just so important, and I'm hoping people gained some ideas and some resources. So we've got books, we've got courses, we've got the Can Be Well site. And if you're looking for a Touch for Health class, you can go to the Can Be Well classes page, and you'll see all the people who are teaching classes, and just reach out, because we're ready and we love to share this material. So with that, we are next in our conversation going to move to the neck and the back, but everybody's going to know it's going to be related to feet, and it's going to come all the way back up to the hands, but we'll be able to at least talk about the pain that a lot of people experience with stiff neck, misalignment, and the inability to turn. So many people can't do that. And that's our next episode. Thank you, ladies. And the journey is the reward. So I'm just going to raise my cup one more time. What a great conversation.
Thank you.
All right. For those of you who have listened in, please like, share, comment, and get the message out to people that you know who could benefit from this. We want to be able to raise awareness and really reach people about bioenergetic wellness. So thank you for playing your part in making sure that these trilogies have a life and that they are heard by the people who need to hear them. Be well, everyone, and we'll talk to you on the next podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. There are a couple of resources I want to just point out. When you go to the website greenwellcenter.com, you'll have a pop-up window. That pop-up gives you the top 8 easy stress releasers that you can use every day. That's something you can put beside your computer, the bathroom mirror, beside the bedside table. A great resource. Also, my YouTube channel. It is full of playlists with all kinds of different ways that you can activate energy and bring vitality into your day. You can find that when you go to YouTube at Michelle Greenwell. And last, if you're a Linktree person, Linktree, linktr.ee/Greenwell Center. That has all my resources in one spot. Those are for intricate little things that you can't get everywhere. And it's a wonderful way for me to be able to share all the different aspects of the kind of work I do. So thank you for listening. Be sure to drink that tea. And if you want to have the tea blend that was shared in the podcast today, then be sure to check out capebretontea.ca. Have a wonderful day.